For us as a community, this Shavuot is by far the most bizarre Shavuot that we will ever experience. It's the festival of Shavuot. It's the anniversary of when we received the Torah. It is the festival in which we were meant to celebrate as a family, as a broader family, and as a communal family, our son Berels bar mitzvah. And it's also the festival on which we say Yizkor. And all of those things have been impacted because of the situation of the restricted movement and the restricted gatherings that we can have as a result of the coronavirus. And so I've been thinking about how these come together and what could we possibly have learnt in this period so that the ancient teachings of Yizkor and Shavuot and the beautiful tradition of the bar mitzvah can still be as elevating as it should be in any other time, in any other era. And so this is what I've come up with. And I'm sharing this idea in honor and in the spirit of all those who have lost loved ones and would need to come to shul and say Yizkor, and in the honor of your loved ones, that their neshama, that their souls should actually find a new place, a heightened place in the Garden of Eden as a result of this learning moment. So a few moments. Shavuot has a very incredible description in the Torah. It's the festival and it's the moment that we were gathered at Mount Sinai, and the Torah describes us as being one person. And the great European commentator Rashi lived in France and Germany hundreds of years ago. Probably the most important commentator on the Chumash says that when the Torah describes us as one person, it was like we were one person with one heart. The reason why he develops that is because the Torah describes us in the singular, and he says we really were a singular entity. We were unified as a people to the point that our heart beat as a singular entity. And there was that togetherness that is so familiar because we've experienced togetherness in different formats of family and communal gatherings. But this was unique because this was a whole nation experiencing a moment of togetherness. But togetherness is something that we tend to fall into a specific definition. We become trapped by this is what togetherness means. And what we're experiencing right now as a family about to celebrate a bar mitzvah, as a community that should be coming together for Yizkor, as a nation that should be coming together for the Ten Commandments and the Shavuot festival, togetherness doesn't actually feel like togetherness has ever felt before. And so maybe it's not that the togetherness has changed, but maybe we are fortunate enough to be in a situation that is driving a consciousness and a demand on us to broaden that consciousness so that togetherness has a broader way of being experienced than the natural, narrow way. So here's my take. And it's not completely my take. It's somewhat fueled by ideas in the Talmud and the Kabbalah, which I'm going to jumble together. And if you don't like the jumbling, that's my fault. But if you like what I say, it's the Talmud and the Kabbalah. Think about our body. Our body is a togetherness. It's all working in sync. It's all together. But that togetherness doesn't mean that it is perfect or that it is ideal in whatever your definition of perfect and ideal is. For example, if you stub your toe, you feel that pain. And yet that pain is a moment of togetherness. If you didn't feel the pain, that would mean there's a disconnect between your toe and your brain. Or if you didn't feel it, there'd be a disconnect between one part of the brain and another. Togetherness is that if you are suffering a heart failure, that you are able to sense that. Togetherness is that when you watch a movie and you're frightened, you feel that. Togetherness is that when you feel happy, you feel happy. The different parts of your body are doing what they're meant to do, and they're doing it in sync, and they're in sync together. Together doesn't feel like any particular thing. It's just feeling in any way. And if there isn't that togetherness, if there isn't that unification, then there is no feeling. So it's interesting because hatred is a form of togetherness. The opposite of love is apathy. Because love is togetherness, apathy is distance. Hatred is togetherness. It's just negative togetherness. So it's not the opposite of love. And so there are many forms of togetherness, and you can have positive and negative, as we've explored together. On Shavuot, the nation experienced a togetherness moment. It doesn't mean we all agreed. It doesn't mean we were all the same. It just meant that we were completely in sync with each other. So synchronicity is togetherness. Empathy is togetherness. Connection, in many broad senses of that word, is togetherness. Reward and punishment are forms of togetherness of the relationship. So what I can draw for our family's bar mitzvah moment is a lot of inspiration from people who have lost loved ones. Because the normal togetherness that parents and children experience, or that siblings experience, or that spouses and partners experience, or families experience, is the togetherness of being able to be in the same room at the same time, to be able to hug, to be hugged, to eat together, to sleep together, to walk together, to whatever it is that you do with the other. And those are classic forms of togetherness. And when a loved one passes away, that togetherness definition is broken. And there's a new form of togetherness that needs to be found. And many find this ability to develop a new form of connection and unity with their loved ones. When the soul leaves this world, it doesn't go away. Its consciousness is forever expanding and is always present. The power of the soul is forever here and forever everywhere as it becomes part of the infinite. Its awareness of us doesn't change. Our awareness of it is what changes and defines the relationship. The soul is always ready for that relationship, always ready to impart blessing and be a channel of Hashem's energy to us. And it's for us to decide how we want to have that relationship. And it's for us to invent the relationship, invent for ourselves, not for the soul, because the soul is always ready for the relationship. It's that we have to be able to move from hugging to being aware, from eating with to honoring and practicing in the spirit of. And you'll find that for many people who do eventually begin to reconcile with the reality of their loved ones leaving this world, they have this ability to still feel the presence of their loved one in their life. Just this morning, someone who was getting up from Shiva told me that she feels her mum is with her. Now, what is that? It's not that there's a ghostly spirit. It's not that there are signs all over the place. It's a sensation that she can experience and that Kabbalah honors. And it's a sensation that can be lost with the distraction of life, much like the connection that can be lost between two lovers, even though they live together in the same home and they can have been together for 30 or 50 years. That togetherness physically does not mean an emotional togetherness. That requires effort. And so people can grow apart. And we can also grow together, and we don't have to be in the same space. That's something we learn from people who've lost loved ones, and something that on Yizkor we actually come back to. Yizkor, I'm mentioning, I'm remembering, I'm appreciating, I'm loving, I'm embodying, I'm channeling, I'm going to practice a positive behavior in this world because of you, my loved one, who's gone to the next world. And that relationship becomes real. And they move into our space, not as a body, but as a force, as an energy, as a soul connecting with ours. So if I draw on that, I suppose that is one of the things that we've accidentally tripped over in this period of physical distance as a result of the coronavirus. We have grown apart physically, but in many ways we have not grown apart spiritually and emotionally. Sure, a Zoom conversation and even a drosha like this via the camera is not much of a connection. But in other ways, our hearts and our spirits have been enlarged. Our desire to connect has become stronger. And therefore, through the substandard mediums that we have right now for togetherness, we are still able to pump double the amount of emotion and connection. This Shabbos and this Yom Tov, we have limited number of people who can come to Spirit Grow. And there are people that want to come but can't come because of limited immunity, because of health challenges or because of fear to go out at this point. But not being in the room does not mean that you're not a part of our community. To be a part of the community is to emotionally be a part of what's going on. It's to feel that connection when we email or message or call each other. It's not even a response, it is a sensation. And just because you're not in the room does not mean you're not a part of the whole. When they gathered at Mount Sinai, the people on the far east flank and the people on the far west flank, they weren't next to each other. They didn't even know each other's names, but they felt that they were part of the whole. And we as a community, whether we're seen or not seen, are a single entity. And so that brings me to Berel. Berel and the Bar Mitzvah. The Bar Mitzvah, we can't even have our own family come together because the restrictions don't change till Sunday night. And we wanted to be together on the day of Shavuot, the day that Berel was born, the day of his Bar Mitzvah. We want to be able to celebrate with you. So even when restrictions are released on Sunday night, it's still only 20 people in a home. We can't fit our community in our home. There is no space that the government will allow us to gather. And there's no space that is safe at this point for us to gather. And yet, the outpouring of love and the connection and the letters and the emails and the phone calls that Berel's received, that I've received, that Rochel's received, have made us feel like we are more connected in some ways. There's no longer this token, we'll pop in, we'll say L'chaim and Mazel Tov. Every person has put in this incredible effort to invent the way that they're going to connect. Our family, in not being together, are experiencing a certain pain, and that pain is the togetherness. It is the same togetherness as the toes pain being felt in the brain. It is only experienced because of the connection. If everyone said to me, well, too bad, guess you're not going to happen, I'd know there's no togetherness, there's no love. But the fact that everyone is experiencing and that we're experiencing highlights that the togetherness is more real than ever. And so Berel, Rochel, and myself will draw from those who have to say Yizkor. We'll draw inspiration from you that just as you have found ways to connect, which are not the easy way, which are not the normal way, but you have expanded the method, so we will find in there a message of how we can celebrate together with our family for Berel's Bar Mitzvah. I want to wish everyone a good Yom Tov. I want to wish everyone comfort. And in the spirit of Berel's Bar Mitzvah, I want to wish everyone joy and mazel. And in the spirit of Shavuot, ki ish echad b'lev echad, like one person with one heart, may all this have just been a very, very, very difficult test to prove, are we unified or are we not? I'm not going to be distracted by the geopolitical machinations that are going on. If one president and another president hate each other, that doesn't mean that the other 7.5 billion people in the world hate each other. I believe that there is so much good happening in the world, and I believe there's been a new revelation of kindness, generosity, and connection that has been born out of what's going on in the world right now. And so may this have just been a test to test humanity, to test our people, to test our family, and that we hopefully will have passed that test. And as a result of us overcoming this challenge, we will see an irreversible change of good, a form of connection that will never be able to be undone, and the hamshacha, the drawing down of blessings into this world, ultimately with the Mashiach, heralding a new era for humanity, an era of spiritual enlightenment, a spiritual unity, and a consciousness of oneness, an end of sickness, an end to war, an end to discord and hatred, and us coming together physically, emotionally, and spiritually now. Chag Sameach.